And we're live. What's going on, y'all? I got Professor Asher, who's gonna come up on stage. He's gonna get into some Hebrew. Asher, where you at right now?
Well, I am in my empty house. We are going for renovations right now, so this is my master bedroom. It's perfectly empty. I'm sitting on the floor with a stool to prop up my iPad. So,
Right. So we're having technical difficulties. I'm having to present this for Asher, but Asher's gonna be doing the teaching, of course, because he's Professor Asher and I'm just some guy. So I'm gonna let you take it, sir.
yep. Okay. So to our zero viewers and whoever will watch this video and live stream in the future, well, welcome. So in this series, I plan to give a very brief overview of the different concepts of the Hebrew language, specifically biblical Hebrew, so that we have a general idea of how it works. All right. Obviously, I am not going into great depth. Okay. So for each episode, for each live stream, we will cover just one aspect each. All right. So for today, we are going into the history of the Hebrew language. All right. And the first thing I like to tell my students, if we are going for a full Hebrew class, is that, press next for me, please, is that Hebrew is never called Hebrew in the Hebrew Bible. Yeah, we are very used to calling biblical Hebrew Hebrew, you know. We even have a Hebrew term for it, Ivrit. But actually, that term does not appear at all in the original Hebrew text of the Jewish scriptures, or we call the Old Testament. And this is something I like to point out because there are many people out there who like to boast that they only learn biblical Hebrew and they don't learn modern Hebrew. And yet, what do they call the Hebrew language? Ivrit. They call it that. And they seem completely unaware about the reality that actually this term Hebrew is what we call the language. But how did the Israelites themselves call their language? Well, we have an indication here in 2 Kings chapter 18, verse 26. This is well into the kingdom era, all right? We are now into the King David is long dead, his son King Solomon is long dead, we are nearing the exile. And here in this passage it says, then Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, and Shevna and Joah said to Rabshakeh, please speak to your servants in Aramaic, for we understand it. Do not speak to us in the language of Judah within the hearing of the people who are on the wall. And the idea is that please do not speak to us in this language because the people on the wall, the Israelites, the people of Judah, they understand this language, so please do not speak to us in this language because then they will hear it and they may become discouraged. All right? And so we see here that the Israelites, at least during this time, in the southern kingdom of Judah, called their language the language of Judah. And in Hebrew, next, in the Hebrew text, the word here is, yes, go ahead, don't worry. The word here is Yehudit. And if you know Hebrew, this sounds like the name Yehudah. And indeed, it is, right? Yehudah is the Hebrew name for Judah. And we remember that after Solomon's death, the kingdom of Israel became divided, right, into the northern kingdom called Israel and the southern kingdom called Judah, Yehudah, right? And eventually, the area became known as Yehudah, Judah, and the language that was used in this area became known as Yehudit. So it says language of Judah in our English translations, but if I had my way, I would translate it as Judahite, the Judahite language or the language of Judah, right? Indeed, even today, when we call someone a Jew, actually in the Hebrew text and also in the Greek text of the New Testament, I would have preferred to translate that word Judahite in order to demonstrate the origin of the word, right? Jew, that word comes from Judah, the name. All right. So I would have said Judahite, a Judahite person rather than a Jewish person. But in any case, all right. So here in this passage, the language that we call Hebrew, the Israelites living in Judah called Yehudit, Judahite. Now, we can take it even further back, all right? The language was not always called Yehudit or Judahite. That only came about after the establishment of the kingdom of Judah, or at least the tribe of Judah, all right? But if we take it even further back, next. Next. No, it shouldn't be this page. Previous. Yeah, that one. Isaiah chapter 19, verse 18. Okay, what we call Hebrew was originally called the language of Canaan, or in the original Hebrew text, Sefat Kena'an. And why is this so? It is because what we call Hebrew is actually one of the languages of Canaan, or I would say one of the Canaanite languages. You see, Hebrew did not just pop out of nowhere. It did not come down from heaven. All right, the Israelites were not the first users of that language which we call Hebrew. Rather, long before even Abraham stepped into the land of Canaan, which became the promised land and then the land of Israel, long before Abraham came into the land, the Canaanites were already using this language. All right. And then, because there are many Canaanite peoples, they developed their own dialects of the Canaanite language. And when the Israelites came into the promised land, or even from Abraham, when Abraham came into the land of Canaan, his son Isaac, who was born in Canaan, had to learn the Canaanite language. They didn't call it Hebrew. All right. And then Isaac's son, Jacob, also had to learn the Canaanite language. And so there is a very interesting story, I don't have it here, where Jacob built a pile of stones with his uncle, Lavan, right? And Lavan spoke Aramaic, and so he called that pile of stones in Aramaic Yagar Sahaduta, which is a stone pile of witness. But the idea is that he named the stone pile in Aramaic, whereas Jacob named the stone pile in Canaanite, or we call Hebrew, right? Gal'el, right? He gave it the equivalent name in Canaanite. And this version of the Canaanite language was eventually used by the Israelites, adopted by the Israelites, and became what we know as Hebrew. All right? So again, Hebrew is nothing more than one of the Canaanite languages that were used by the Canaanite peoples long before even Abraham stepped into the land of Canaan. Now, I can demonstrate this. Next. This is the Mesha stele. It was written by the Moabite king Mesha. in the Moabite language. And yet, someone who knows biblical Hebrew can read and understand the Mesha stele. All right, let's take a look. Next. So first, we have to reconstruct the text, all right? Because if you look at it, it's a bit difficult to read, right? So what happens is that usually scholars will try to reconstruct the writing on the stele or whatever archaeological find that they're dealing with. And so this is the reconstruction here. For those of you who know Paleo-Hebrew, this looks awfully familiar. And indeed, it's because Mesha was writing his language in his script. See, this is not the Paleo-Hebrew script. This is a Canaanite script. But later on, when the Israelites started writing their language, and remember, their language is nothing more than a Canaanite language, which contained the same sounds as the Canaanite languages, and so they could write the Hebrew language with this script. All right? So this is not the Paleo-Hebrew script. Rather, what we call Paleo-Hebrew is nothing more than the Canaanite script that the Canaanites were writing their language with. So notice here, the Moabite king Mesha was writing the Moabite language in the Canaanite script, which we think is the Paleo-Hebrew script, all right? Now, as you know, King Mesha can be found in the Bible, all right? I won't go into that, but you see, because of that, we know that this inscription was written in around the year 840 BC, all right? And because of the script, right? If you look at the first letter of that script on the top right hand, most people who know Paleo-Hebrew will know that that is the letter Aleph. And indeed, that's correct, right? So what we can do is actually transcribe this inscription, letter for letter, Aleph to Aleph, bit to bit, transcribe it from this script into the square or so-called Assyrian script that most people are used to. Next. No, yeah, correct. All right, that's it. So there we go. This is what happens when we transcribe the first sentence of the inscription, letter by letter, Aleph to Aleph, bit to bit, all right, from the Canaanite script to the Assyrian script. Okay, this is what we see. And at the moment, it may be not so readable to a biblical Hebrew student at the moment. And so what happens is all I have to do is just massage this transcription into its equivalent biblical Hebrew form. Next. And now you can read it, right? All I've done is I've just added, modified some of the letters and inserted some of the familiar vowel pointings, all right? And now you can read it. Would you like to try that? Who else is on there? No? Ryan, come on. You can read it. No one else is here to save you from this.
Anochi Mesa bin Kemoshit Melech Moav Hadivoni.
Yeah, well done. Yeah, well done, right? Anochi, what does that mean?
I.
Mesha, that's the name of the king, all right? Ben Kemoshit, what does Ben mean?
Son,
yeah. Son of Kemoshit, and Kemoshit is the name of this Moabite god, all right? And then Melech, what is Melech?
King of Moab.
What is Melech Moab?
King of Moab.
King of Moab, yeah. King of Moab, so that's the construct state, right? And then Had Divoni just is where he lives. where he's from.
Hmm.
Ryan, have you been learning Moabite?
I don't know no more about it.
No, you don't know Moabite. But look, you are reading a Moabite inscription written by a Moabite king in the Moabite language. If you haven't been learning Moabite, how is it you are able to read this and understand it?
Right.
And the answer is that because Hebrew is nothing more than a Canaanite language. So
Hmm.
even after learning biblical Hebrew, you are able to read this Moabite inscription because Moabite is also a Canaanite language. Right? Next. So that's it. That's the English translation. Anochi Mesha ben Kemoshit melech Moab had Divoni. I am Mesha, son of Kemoshit, king of Moab, the Dibonites. That's it. All right. This shows that Hebrew is a Canaanite language. All right. It didn't pop out of nowhere. All right. Next. So Hebrew developed over time.
Hold on, I
All
got a
right.
question, man. I got a quick
Yeah.
question. Can you hear me okay?
Sure. I can hear you. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking at the original, okay, the
Yeah.
Mesha Stele, however you say that. And then
Yep.
I'm looking at the Aleph to Aleph, bet to bet, like you would say, the letter for
Yep.
letter transcription. Okay.
Yep.
So when it comes down to the vowel markers, what are we using to understand? Because obviously in the transcription, there's no vowels, there's no Nikud.
Yep.
So what are we using, or what are scholars using to know where to put the vowel markers on, like this artifact?
Okay. So again, when I inserted vowel markers, I made it very clear that I am doing a Hebrew equivalence translation, right?
Got you.
That's no longer the Moabite language. Now, the Moabite inscription, so will sound a bit different, right? So I know the Hebrew equivalence translation will sound like Anochi Mesha ben Kemoshit. Now, the Moabite language probably sounded like Anoch Mesha bin Kemoshit or something like that. It would be different, all right?
Got
But there will still be vowels, right? And
Yeah.
we know this because of some other factors, right? When we compare how Canaanite inscriptions were transliterated by other societies and cultures, we get hints, right? And also we observe how the language develops over time. We get hints about how the Moabites would have vowelized their language, right? So it's the same thing for Hebrew. The Moabites did not write down vowels on their inscriptions, as you can see, and yet they still pronounced their language with vowels. It's inevitable, right? So the same thing happened with Hebrew. Yeah, I
Okay.
hope that answers the
So
question. Yes.
definitely. So we can understand, because it may be pronounced differently, but the words are very, very similar. Like the, I don't know how to put it, the syntax or whatever. Like if, for example,
Yeah.
in Hebrew, it's ani or anochi, that's going to be I, and we know that in the Moabite dialect, I should say, if they say however they pronounce it, we still know that their aleph, nun, het would be ani, anochi.
Yeah, Anochi, that's right. So
Right.
the
Okay.
Moabite Anoch is equivalent to the Hebrew Anochi.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So Hebrew developed over time, right? The Hebrew that modern Israelis speak today in the modern state of Israel is different from the Hebrew that David spoke during his time, and the Hebrew that David spoke is different from the Hebrew that Moses spoke. And the Hebrew that Moses spoke is different from, an earlier generation. All right, and we do observe this in the text. I will show you a few examples in a moment. But scholars have generally identified these 7 stages of Hebrew. All right, so the earliest stage of Hebrew is what we call archaic Hebrew. The book of Job is written in that. So even if you have studied biblical Hebrew, you would have some difficulty with the book of Job for a while. Um, Standard biblical Hebrew is what the books of Genesis to Kings are written in, all right? And then the later books of the Bible, like the book of Chronicles, the book of Esther, right? There are noticeable differences, all right, which we will see in a while, okay? But suffice to say, when you go to school or when you use a textbook that teaches biblical Hebrew, all right, what you are actually learning is only 2 of the stages. Next. Okay, you are learning only standard biblical Hebrew and late biblical Hebrew. And the reason is because these two stages of Hebrew are actually similar enough that your textbook can cover them. You wouldn't even know the difference unless I show it to you, right? But the grammar and syntax are similar enough that they can be covered in the textbook and you would not know the difference, all right? But you would have problems reading archaic Hebrew and the other stages of Hebrew if you only learn textbook biblical Hebrew. All right. Now, next. First, let us do the comparison between modern Hebrew and biblical Hebrew. The favorite example of mine is Genesis chapter 2, verse 6, where it says that, before a time that there was rain, ve'ed ya'ale min ha'ares, ve'hishqa et kol peneh ha'adamah. All right, and I want to focus on that word ya'ale. Ryan, how good are you at parsing? Can you parse this word?
I don't understand the question. Can I?
Parse.
Can I?
So
Parsing.
can you
Okay.
identify the root, the stem, the tense, and all that kind of thing?
I mean, come on, Mr. Professor. You the one teaching. I see the. I mean, the yod, of course, would be a. Let me start with the shurish. Okay, the ayin
Yeah.
lamed, the ayin and the lamed, right? And the
Actually,
hey,
Ayin, Lamed, and Hey. Yes, that's right.
right,
Yeah.
right. And then the yod would be third person or no?
Yeah, third
Third.
person.
Okay, so hold on. I'm first year, Mr. Professor. Okay, so we got the third person. Um, it's the third person singular, and that's all I know. Help me out.
Yeah, yeah. So next.
Okay, let me go to the next.
All right. So it is Ayin, Lamed, Hey. Qal stem, Yiqtol tense, and the third masculine singular, as you said. You do well. You do well for a first year. All right. Now, here's the thing. In modern Israeli Hebrew, the yiqtol tense is equated to the future tense. All right. So if a modern Israeli Hebrew speaker reads this text and he doesn't have any background in biblical training, he will naturally interpret this as next. He will naturally interpret this as, and a mist will go up, right? He will read this as a future tense, all right? Because in modern Israeli Hebrew, the Yitol tense is equated with the future tense. However, this is not the case with biblical Hebrew. In biblical Hebrew, the Yitol tense does not always denote future time. Rather, the timing of the action of the verb must be determined by context. Okay? So in biblical Hebrew, the Yitol tense has more to do with imperfective aspect rather than timing. So a biblical Hebrew reader would know that, oh, the context is talking about something that happened in the past, but the Yitol tense indicates an imperfective, ongoing kind of action, right? So a biblical Hebrew reader will interpret this text as next, and a mist used to go up. He will get the tense, the timing of the verb from context, all right? And then the imperfective aspect from the Yitol tense. So you see, a modern Hebrew reader will wrongly understand a biblical Hebrew text unless he is, of course, had some background, right? But the idea here is, look, the modern Hebrew is so different from biblical Hebrew that there is potentially this possibility of misunderstanding. And notice something again. Many people think that modern Hebrew and biblical Hebrew differ in the way that it is written. We will cover this in Unit 2, all right? But that is not the case. The difference between modern Hebrew and biblical Hebrew is not in the writing style, but in the grammar, the syntax, and even the vocabulary preferences. Okay? Notice, this is written in the Assyrian script, but a modern Hebrew reader will perceive it differently from a biblical Hebrew reader. All right? A modern Hebrew translation of this verse would be a bit different from what actually appears in the original text of Genesis 2:6. All right? Any questions at this point?
Nah, I mean, you're doing a great job, Professor. You know, it took me a second because I'm still getting used to the Yiktol, the Vayiktol. We just started learning that 2 weeks ago, and
Okay, okay.
we're closing out on our first year. So it took me literally that long. Well, it took me till a few minutes ago to see that the Shurish here, being the Ayin Lamed and the Hay, was Allah to go up. So so the Yod, of course. Okay, thank you,
Yeah, don't
Professor.
worry, man. You're doing good. All right, let's go. Next one. Now, archaic biblical Hebrew is archaic Hebrew is found in like the Song of the Sea. That's in Exodus chapter 15. All right, where the original, I think, very close to the original at least, the form of the song is found. All right, and in verse 5 it says, "The floods covered them," referring to the Egyptians, "and they went down into the depths like a stone." Now, in the Hebrew text, the word for covered them is this. Next. Can you read that?
Yechas
Yeah, Yechasyumu, right? I won't ask you to parse it, but
Nah,
let
this
me put it
one
this way. Yeah, you can?
maybe. Okay, so because I know the Yod and then the Shurish at the end. So it's they, so it's third person, um, masculine plural.
It is, yes. What is the root?
Nah, you're going too far. This ain't in my vocabulary.
Yes. Don't worry. Even if a student has completed Hebrew, he would not be able to parse this word because
Wow.
your textbooks don't teach you this, because it's archaic Hebrew. Remember, your textbooks don't cover archaic Hebrew. Next. This is actually
Mm.
Kaf Samech He in the PL stem in the Yiktol tense, third masculine plural, all right, with a third masculine plural object, right? The floods covered them, third masculine plural object, all right? But your textbooks do not teach this, all right? Your textbooks only teach, at the earliest, standard biblical Hebrew. Next. All right, so how should it be written according to the textbooks, right? So if I ask you, I don't know if you happen to know this. If I ask you to compose, right? Kaf samech he in the PIL stem in the Yqtol tense, third masculine plural. How would you do it? Would you know?
Nah, I mean, I
No.
haven't even got into the binyanim. I haven't gotten into that yet. I'm just at the
Okay, don't worry,
as
don't
far as I
worry.
got
Okay,
is yikto. Okay,
all right, no worries, no worries. So the textbook will teach you to conjugate it in this way. Next.
I can't believe I was fixing to debate you on the Hebrew language. That's great.
So, kaf samech he in the PIL stem in the yiktol tense, third masculine plural, according to the textbook, will be yechassu. All right? Now, if we add on the third masculine object, it would be this. Next. The third masculine plural object is just a mem. All right? And then we will get, next, yechassum. So, if you follow your textbook, this word should be written in as yechassum. But remember, this is only standard biblical Hebrew that your textbook teaches you. Yechassum. But what appears in Exodus 15:5? Yechasyum. There is a difference because Exodus, the Song of the Sea, is written in archaic Hebrew, which your textbook does not teach. All right? So right there, we see the development from archaic Hebrew and standard biblical Hebrew that is in your textbooks. Yeah?
Within the same script.
Same script. Yeah. I mean, if you want me to, I could have written this in the Paleo Hebrew script, right? But there'll be no difference, right? We'll cover that in Unit 2.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. If I asked you, what is the word for kingdom in Hebrew? What would you say?
Mamlecha. Mamlecha.
Mamlacha. Some other people will say malchut. Now, they are not wrong. They are not wrong. Let's take a look next. Neither of you are wrong, by the way. 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 12. This is Jehovah's promise to David, right? When your days are fulfilled and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your offspring after you, who shall come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom, mamlacha. All right? This is standard biblical Hebrew. Now, hundreds of years later, someone wrote the book of Chronicles. And in the parallel passage in 1 Chronicles 17:11, that word is malchut. Parallel passage. The chronicler is talking about the same event as 2 Samuel 7:12, right? But there is malchut. Now, both of these terms already existed, all right, even during the time of David. But during the time of David, when people wanted to say kingdom, they preferred to use the word mamlacha. And then hundreds of years later, during the time of the chronicler, when people say kingdom, they preferred to use the word malchut. Right? So you will actually, if you do a statistical comparison, you would find that in earlier biblical Hebrew books, the word mamlacha occurs more frequently than malchut. But in later biblical Hebrew books, the word malchut occurs more frequently than mamlacha. All right? So you see, even the preferences of vocabulary changes over the centuries. Right? Now, there are other differences between standard biblical Hebrew and late biblical Hebrew, but they are more difficult to demonstrate at this point. So this is my go-to example for now. All right. I think I have one more slide. Oh, I don't. Oh no, okay, never mind. We'll cover that the next our next time. Just go back. So that is all I have today. This is the history. I've just given a run over through the history of the Hebrew language and how it developed from when the Israelites adopted it. Well, Abraham adopted it, and up to the time of the exile and beyond.
Well, that was that was good, Professor, and I appreciate your time in doing this. Like you said, to our one viewer,
For our two viewers now.
two viewers. Well, hopefully in the future we'll get enough people to ask some questions. I don't have any questions I could ask right now. Yes, actually I do. What does LBH stand for? You had SBH and then you had LBH. What does LBH
Yeah,
stand
just go back to the table. Go back to the table.
for? Let me go back to the
Back, back,
table.
back. Yeah,
This
that
table.
one, that table. Yeah. So
Oh,
SBH
late
is
biblical.
standard biblical Hebrew, and then LBH is late biblical Hebrew.
Got you. And then archaic Hebrew is going to be even more different.
It's even more different. You have to look no further than the Book of Job, or even the Song of the Sea that I showed just now.
Wow. Okay. And then you get into so the people that were scribes, they were regardless of the genre. Can I call it a genre? Okay,
The
regardless of the
stage, I
genre.
will call it a stage.
Okay, regardless of the stage that the manuscripts they were copying them in, regardless of the stage, they would stay true to that stage.
That's right.
So they wouldn't, for example, I see the Dead Sea Scrolls,
Yeah.
early post-biblical Hebrew, right? And
Hmm.
where are we measuring that? Anywhere from 3 BCE to
Yeah.
the
So
first century.
yeah. So third century up to the first century. Yeah.
Right. So even if they received a brand new scroll that had the archaic Hebrew, the standard biblical Hebrew, and the late biblical Hebrew, all in that one scroll, they wouldn't write all three of those different styles in the early post biblical Hebrew. They would stay true to however the scroll came.
Okay, okay. The Dead Sea Scrolls are a very special bunch, all right?
Okay.
So they are not all the same people, all right? So you do have some scribes who will copy faithfully, regardless of the stage. But we know of at least one scribe who tried to do some updates. So the famous Great Isaiah Scroll, and we could go through this sometime. The Great Isaiah Scroll actually is quite different, letter for letter, quite different from the original Hebrew text of Isaiah. All right, but then another scribe in the same community, or at least among the Dead Sea Scrolls, copied the text letter for letter more accurately. Right, so there seems to be differences of preferences even among the Dead Sea Scroll community.
Okay. What is that? It's south of the Dead Sea Scroll site. Starts with the M. It was where they had their last stand after
Masada,
the Masada. Is that what it is?
yeah,
Did you?
yeah,
Okay.
Masada.
Sorry. I read and I don't like. Okay. Anyways, so was there a big writing difference between what we seen in the Dead Sea Scrolls and what we see in Masada, or is it similar? And
Masada, if I remember correctly, the letters at Masada are early post-biblical Hebrew. I don't recall if, and I might have gotten this wrong, but I don't recall that they have any copies of biblical texts there. I don't recall. Yeah.
they got Psalms 82 there.
Sounds 82, yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll have to check it and get back to you. Yeah.
Right. I just bring that up because I was doing that summer workshop and yeah,
Okay.
right. So man, so this is pretty cool, bro. So what's next week?
Next week, we are going to look at consonants and whether there is really a significant difference between Paleo Hebrew and the Assyrian script.
Why you keep saying Paleo Hebrew like that? Paleo Hebrew.
Because people use that term mostly out of ignorance. They don't know how the
Right,
language developed and how it is adapted.
right. So
Uh
you
yeah.
um so you're telling me God didn't speak in Hebrew to Adam.
This is something that we cannot know for sure. There,
Right.
there is good reason to think that Jehovah spoke to Adam in a language similar to what we call Hebrew, right? Because remember, even Hebrew, even the Canaanite language, developed from Adam's language. That
Mhm.
there is a continuity. So it's not beyond reason to think that Adam's language had some similarities to Hebrew.
That's a good point. I was trying to be funny, but you made a really good point. Okay. Um, and you said next week's going to be the consonants, like aleph,
That's
bet,
right. Yeah.
going through, and then week three is going to be. Have you got that far?
Sorry.
Week three.
Week
It's
three. Yeah. These are all materials that I have made before for my students taking
ah,
biblical Hebrew from me. So yeah.
got you. Okay, so this is like real deal college stuff. You're going to be parsing through. Got you. Okay. Well,
Yep.
I don't feel too special anymore, but I still appreciate your time. I'm like, man, he really went all out for this teaching. But nah, that's really really cool, man. And I really do appreciate you. I'm looking forward to next week. Learn something new every time I talk to you. It's definitely appreciated. And if you are somebody that's watching on repeat, how often are we going to do these? Are we going to do these every at this time each week or
I think we said like once a month. Yeah, we have a
okay,
open Hebrew class. Do any of
once a
our two viewers want to ask a question?
It's a good question. Comment.
Is the chat open to them?
Yeah, I mean this is on Facebook and it's on Facebook and it's on YouTube. I think it's on my YouTube. Yeah, it's on my YouTube. Not my personal YouTube, but my pronomian YouTube. But
Right.
so yeah, so hopefully next time. I mean, it takes a while to for stuff like this to, for people to catch up to it, and especially if somebody doesn't have absolutely any idea of Hebrew, the letters, anything.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, but I'm excited for it. So once a month, it's gonna be the last week of each month,
Yeah, looks like it. Yeah.
right? So the last week of each month, and I got to do better at the promo thing so we can get more of a crowd because I know a few people that want to learn Hebrew, but that stuff costs money, and here you are teaching it for free. So I'll make sure they got a link. But anything else for the viewers before we go? Obviously, nobody has any questions, anything like that, and I'm sleepy, so I'm finna I'm
All
finna
right.
take off.
So perhaps I think next time it will be a more godly time of the night when
Oh
everyone is
yes,
still
right.
alert.
So
Yeah.
right, and just so we can do this live, I guess. So
Yeah.
what time is it there right now?
Right now it's 10:26 a.m. here in
Okay,
Singapore.
and it's 9:26 p.m. here. So if we do it at 7 p.m. at my time, that's gonna be
8 a.m. my time, which is
8 a.
fine. But will
Okay.
will people have finished their daily activities and nicely sitting to watch
Yeah,
a Hebrew lesson. Yeah.
right. Yeah. Nah, 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock's good. At this time, it's normally the time where I mean somebody like me, I'm either work. Well, I still be working, but if I wasn't working, I'd be reading. Away from my electronics, unless I'm reading on my phone on Kindle. But
Mhm.
it's kind of late, so yeah, I think 7 o'clock would be a lot better. And then from there, we just see how it go.
All right. Yeah. So if anyone has watched this and have any questions or objections, we'll see you next month. Come with them. Yep. Challenge us.
Yeah. Challenge him. Don't challenge me in Hebrew. Wait, wait. That's what's up. Professor Ash, I appreciate you. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off here, man. I got a lot of respect for you taking the time out your busy schedule to give free teaching. That's really, really cool, man. And it really says a lot about your heart. I definitely appreciate you. All right, bro.
Hallelujah.
Amen. Amen. I mean, blessings.
All right.